fact, I'm going to put it up to 5 speed. Just so that things go by a modicum quicker. The Constitution of the German Kaiserreich. After the crushing defeat of the Second French Empire by forces of the North German Federation, our Constitution was signed in 1871 by representatives of the Federation and 4 other states in southern Germany. The new constitutional framework integrated the southern states into the Prussian-led federation, thus giving the enlarged entity a new identity as the Deutsches Reich. Apologies to everyone, but I cannot pronounce German names. I will keep on trying, of course, but I simply cannot. According to the Constitution, the Empire is a federation of 25 German states. The title of Bundesradium, or Federation President, was held by the King of Prussia, a figure now invested with the title of German Emperor. The Emperor directly appoints the Chancellor, the head of government, and chairman of the Bundesrat, the Council of Representatives of the German states. Laws are enacted by both the Bundesrat and the Reichstag, the lower house, Imperial Diet, elected by male Germans above the age of 25 years. With an option to dissolve the Reichstag on a whim, it is clear that the main political power in Germany actually rests not in the Reichstag, elected by the people, but in the hands of the non-elected German emperor. Another issue is the Prussian 3-class voting system, which has remained mostly unchanged since 1849. Over 60 years after the founding of the Kaiserreich, the liberals and social democrats are growing increasingly disgruntled with the status quo, and our constitution may need revision, and soon, to help us weather the upcoming turbulence. Well, a constitution guarantees stability at least, right? Right? Yeah, not so much. As you can see, the German system is more than a little bit, shall we say, autocratic. Not exactly. In any shape, equal. And we've just got another event. The assassination of President Karensky. Karensky has just been shot and killed while on the way to the Senate. The assailant was taken down by the police, but the goals and intentions of the attacker are unknown. Despite his massive unpopularity among the Russian people due to botched land reform and ineffective rule, Karensky was nevertheless able to hold the country together for years, and his death has thrown Russia into chaos. The senators are already discussing a possible replacement to Karensky. New coalitions are being formed, both between the left and the right, while military men like Wrangel and Kornilov are just one step away from intervening to dissolve democracy and, quote-unquote, save Mother Russia. How barbaric. Uh-oh. Sick. Hey, glad you made it. Yes, I was reading the text there just because, as you can probably guess, my internet makes it basically impossible to stream above 480p, and Kaiserreich has a lot of text. So I make a point to read as much of it as I can, just in case the resolution makes that difficult. And what's up? Well, we're playing as Germany. We have the world empire, not the British. And the president of Russia's just been assassinated. Oh, and the British and French are socialist. Italy's split into pieces, and half of it is socialist. And we're probably only about 3 years away from another two-front war against the French and British and the Russians. So, fun times, huh? Fun times. Also, I only have about 240,000 manpower. And somehow the Ottoman Empire still exists. And the Austrian Empire sort of does, but not really. It's in like 1 billion pieces right now. And just to bring up a thing I was talking to another dude who was in here earlier about, Poland in Kaiserreich is somehow fully independent, and I never got this. See, they're sandwiched between Germany, Germany's client states, Germany's ally, and the Austrians, and yet they are fully independent. Would love to know how they manage that. Because that's quite an achievement. To not at least start out as being a client state. I mean, Finland's sort of in a similar position, but they at least have a German king, so that's something. Now let's hit on pause. I'm running it on the fastest speed right now because early on it's a lot of events and narrative stuff as opposed to actually combat and fighting. Though depending on what happens, I may end up fighting a land war in Asia. Because we have what was French Indochina, i.e. Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos, as a colony, so let's just say they're not exactly too thrilled to be a German colony. And they tend to try to do something about it. Voting rights in the Legation Council. The Legation cities were formed in 1928 as a result of the Americans intervening in a Japanese-Chinese conflict that was going to spill over into open war between ourselves and the Japanese. When a passenger train was attacked by Chinese warlords, America saw the opportunity to mediate, not only in order to create a more permanent solution to the instability in the East, but also enshrine the open door policy in China, which allows all powers equal access to Chinese markets. Consisting of all official concessions in China, as well as a 30-mile neutral zone, the legation cities, officially known as the International Mandate for the Chinese government, also host a forum, the Legation Council, for the various powers with interests in China to resolve disputes and work together. As the foremost European power in the East, we naturally are able to vote on the Council and further our Eastern agenda. A perfect arrangement for everyone that matters. That is to say, everyone in the West. Because screw China. This is basically an excuse to legitimately loot and pillage China of any and all valuable resources. China in Kaiserreich, I gotta be honest, is a bit of a hot mess. even more so than historical China in 1936, which is basically run by a bunch of warlords who would all like to kill each other. Nominally, the Emperor of China is in charge and runs the place, but it's just an alliance, and in very little time, everything is going to fall to pieces. It's all going to break apart, and the League of Eight Provinces is going to experience all of the rebellions there are. Let's see. This area down here, about that sort of thing, is going to break off and secede. I think there's something around that area that becomes the Hunan clique, and then this province up here, I forget the name, but it breaks off as well. League of Eight Provinces basically becomes the Nanqing clique. Oh yeah, and there's a second Kuomintang rebellion down in that area. China does not have a fun time of it. I've seen a Let's Play of one guy who actually managed to hold the League together and reconquer everything, and I do not know how they did it. That is just fucking amazing to me. I played as the left Kuomintang down here, actually, and they are quite a fun faction, although they have quite a difficult start. They really do. And that's just the factions that are part of what you consider the official Chinese nation at this point. There's also the Fengtian government up here, which is not a Japanese puppet state, but very heavily influenced by them. Their leader is a warlord, pretty heavily involved with Japan, so they will try to invade through the Qing and conquer China at some point. They usually don't succeed because by then the northern border up here of the Qing is pretty heavily fortified, so it's very hard to make it through there. For them is generally what happens. But yeah, there's a lot of fun things going on in Kaiserreich, including the fact that we have no Soviet Union in this. There is the Russian Republic, which Karensky is still the leader of for about the next 0.3 seconds, even though he's dead. And the thing is, the reason I actually wanted to play as Germany in this run is because there's been some changes to some of the surrounding nations' AI in regards to Germany, because when 1939 rolls around, one event that happens that's hard-coded is the French will send an ultimatum demanding we hand over the territories of Alsace-Lorraine right here. That Germany took off them in the Franco-Prussian War. And when that happens, I will inevitably refuse and they will declare war. It used to be that there was only something of a chance for Russia to get involved, but now it's been changed. So that Russia will inevitably declare war on Germany when that happens. Oh, damn. Well, thanks for turning up anyways. Glad it's running smooth. I had to reduce the audio quality settings a little bit to get it smooth because there was a lot of lag the first time I tried a 480p stream, but glad to see it's going well. Thanks for showing up. But yeah, the thing that's why I wanted to do Germany is They changed it so that now Russia is basically guaranteed to go to war with you. And the guaranteed two-front war sounds like an interesting challenge. I've beaten the French, British, and Northern Italians once before, but it was a bit of a slog, so we'll see how this goes. See how this goes. Totalist Charter. Oh, this little number, I remember. Mussolini, Valois, Herzog, and other interested parties arrived in Birmingham today to discuss their common ground. It has been agreed that Maximism, Cyrillianism, and National Syndicalism all share basic principles of the state's primacy in the socialist struggle, the role of national identity within the state, and the importance of a strong central authority to preserve and build socialism. Their statements have drawn great criticism from other socialist factions, gave it the name totalism, as a play on totalitarian socialism, which has been eagerly accepted by Mosley, who added it to the manifesto's name, attributing it to their total commitment to socialism. Mein Gott, the people must reject this madness. And there you see why I don't do accents, because I am horrifically bad at it. Edward VIII crowned as King of Great Britain. George V, last King of Great Britain and Ireland to have ruled the home isles themselves, has passed while in exile in Canada. The first Windsor King's reign shall be remembered with sorrow and sadness, as during it Britain lost both the Weltkrieg and its homeland. The crown was inherited by Edward, Prince of Wales, now styles himself as Edward VIII. King Edward is a vengeful and ambitious man, and not on good terms with Prime Minister Mackenzie King. He lives on the goal of avenging his father and reconquering the British Isles, and thus is quite popular among the British exiles in Canada, among others. Yes. Edward VIII, the historical Edward VIII, was actually king of the UK for a while, as I remember, in the 1930s for a time, but he abdicated. See, for those of you who don't know this piece of historical trivia, Edward VIII was interested in marrying an American divorcee and film star, but he was the head of the Church of England, which, ironically enough, considering how the Church of England got started as a separate thing from the Catholic Church, it was considered bad form, or it wasn't actually permitted for the head of the Catholic of the Church of England to marry someone who was divorced. Which, if you think about it, is a little bit amusing, considering the fact that the Church of England came from Henry VIII wanting to get divorced to marry a different person. So I find that mildly entertaining. Payment of the Brest-Litovsk reparations. The stagnation of our economy and worsening conditions for our citizens during 1936, our government has decided that in order to restart our economy, we need additional cash. The only available option is to amass sufficient capital to help our economy. To amass sufficient capital, I should say, was to force Russia to prematurely repay the remaining reparations from the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. During the Berlin Conference in November 1938, President Alexander Karensky, together, or 1935 I should say, with Prime Minister Peter Milyukov, were forced to accept the premature payment of Brest-Litovsk reparations. Drastic austerity measures, the Russian government was able to prematurely repay the remaining parts of the reparations as they were agreed in the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. Excellent. And get a bunch more political power from that. That I can do things with. I'm going to remove any of the colors. I want those nations to stay colored. But what I can do is go to early mobilization to get rid of some of the debuffs that we have from the civilian economy. And for one thing, we'll need 5% less consumer goods factories. The military to civilian conversion cost goes away. And this will reduce construction speed for both by 20%. I'm all for that. There we go. Now, Chief of the Air Force. I'm not actually sure what else I want to do in there, so I'll just save it for the time being. Apparently we need 28 chromium and I didn't realize it. Lovely. Hey, Ottoman Empire, give me your chromium. I'll be having that, thank you. Sick Men of Europe, give me your stuff. Afghanistan has declared war on the Dominion of India. Yeah, good luck with that, Afghanistan. I hate to say it, but Afghanistan might be maddeningly impossible to actually conquer by an outside force, but I don't like their odds with going on the warpath of expansion or anything. And this is one of the scripted default events that will always happen. Afghanistan, without fail, goes to war with India. Pretty much also, without fail, loses that war. Though, they haven't ended up losing significant territory in a while. These two provinces right here are Indian cores that Afghanistan seized off of them during some political instability before Kaiserreich's timeline actually starts in the mod. And usually what all India does is take them back and leave it at that. They used to occasionally conquer or vassalize Afghanistan, make them into a puppet, I should say. But that doesn't tend to happen anymore. At least I've never seen it happen. So that must have been scripted to be basically impossible, is all I can think of. The Fifth Anglo-Afghani War. After the Weltkrieg, as the British Raj collapsed into turmoil and warfare, the neighboring kingdom of Afghanistan took advantage of this as an opportunity to seize Peshawar and Quetta, both border regions of the Dominion. However, the Afghani government's attempts to modernize over the last decades have been met with fierce resistance from the conservative elements within the country. King Amanullah Khan now hopes to use the turmoil in Delhi following the death of George V to his advantage by repeating the success of the Fourth Anglo-Afghan War. The king hopes to silence conservative opposition and bring new lands to the crown. However, international experts do not put much hope in the tiny mountain nation winning this conflict. Who cares about Afghanistan anyways? And what do we follow that up with but Black Monday? Well, fuck. You see, we have just gotten what is essentially the Kaiserreich version of the Great Depression. Only the thing is that because the world economy and stock market is centered in Berlin rather than New York City now, that crash happens in Berlin. Black Monday. On the 3rd of February 1936, the Berlin Stock Exchange stopped sinking. It plunged. Fueled by the instability of the market, panic selling erupted as soon as the stock market opened on Monday morning. It took well into the night for the teleprinters to stop sputtering out the results of what became known as Black Monday. When the results had been analyzed, it was clear that the situation had only got worse. The shock of the unprecedented economic catastrophe will no doubt be felt over the entire world. The German Golden Age has ended. For now, at least. Mein Gott! This is a catastrophe! We get Black Monday effects, which gives us a consumer goods factory requirement of 50%, construction speed minus 40%, production efficiency cap minus 20%, factory output minus 40%, and stability minus 50%. So basically, we are in hot shit.